Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the program. You know, they say, of course, the old truism is that predicting is hard, especially about the future. We talk a lot about technology and its effect on society here on the 0 Hour, and I have a couple thoughts about that. But first, just to let you know what's coming up in this hour, we have two outstanding economists talking about issues that cut close to home in one way or another for all of us. We will have Gabrielle Zuckman, who is a professor at UC Berkeley and a disciple of Thomas Piketty, talking about offshore tax havens and, among other things, how they rob countries, including ours, of much-needed revenue and understate the wealth of the very fortunate among us. And we will also have Elise Gould of the Economic Policy Institute talking about a study she recently co-authored on the staggeringly high costs of childcare. I think you'll be shocked by some of the things that Elise Gould and her colleagues have found out about the cost of childcare in this country. So please stick around for that. And before we get into that, a few comments on technology. You know, a couple weeks back, the New York Times had a story entitled "The Plot Twist." That was the headline given to it. E-book sales slip and print is far from dead. Many of us lamented a few years ago the rise of the e-book, even though I buy them all the time. I travel a lot. Lamented the rise of the e-book because we have a personal relationship with actual physical books as objects. And I can get into that, why I feel that way. I know not everybody agrees, but it was, as the Times says, 5 years ago, the book world was panicking over the death of print, especially, as I have written, because Amazon has an extremely large share of the ebook market and has been using that for some very predatory practices. So both from an economic standpoint, from the standpoint of getting writers payment for their work, and for a variety of other reasons, including aesthetic preference, the loss of the printed word, the physically printed word, was going to be a terrible thing. Ebook sales soared, as the New York Times reminds us, up 1,260% between 2008 and 2010. So booksellers were alarmed, and many of us mourned as our favorite bookstores closed one after another. Okay, 2011, Borders, the book chain, declared bankruptcy. There were many of us who were upset when Borders came along and destroyed the independent bookstore. So what we now know is that, as the Times put it, the digital apocalypse never arrived, or at least it hasn't arrived on schedule. Some ebook adopters are returning to print or becoming hybrid readers who juggle devices and paper. I guess that's the best way to describe myself. I know there are some books I want in physical form. I know there are some books I'll be satisfied to have in ebooks, but believe me, the ones I care about, I get physical copies of. You know, one of my favorite models of this is one of the left-wing book publishers. I think it's Verso Books, Verso. When you order a physical copy of their book online, they give you the ebook version, which is great, because if you see a book and you're excited about reading it, but you want it as a physical object, you buy it and you wait for the physical object, but in the meantime, you read the ebook itself. And if you don't want to lug a bunch of books on a plane or a bus or on your way to work or whatever, you can read the ebook version. You can switch back and forth. In a way, that's kind of my favorite model. Now, in terms of the broader industry trends, ebook sales fell by 10% in the first 5 months of this year. Digital books accounted for only about 20% of the book market last year, roughly the same as they did a few years ago. So it's beginning to look like things, at least for the moment, may not be as grim as we once thought. In fact, this resurgence or resilience of print has helped some booksellers. Independent bookstores, according to the Times, are showing some signs of resurgence. The American Booksellers Association counted 1,712 member stores in 2,227 locations in 2015. That's up from 1,410 in 1,660 locations 5 years ago. So that's actually growth among independent booksellers. That makes me really happy, although in every major city in America, there is at least one independent bookseller that is gone, which I continue to mourn. Now, in other technology-related news, we find out that streetlights are getting cameras and internet connections. Now, this one I'm not so happy about. This one says that, we've been hearing a lot about smart cities and about the Internet of Things and all that. And GE, General Electric, which outsources a lot of American jobs too, by the way, is working on a pilot of what it calls its intelligent lamppost project. It's trying to get that approved in New York City. These are lights which dim and brighten according to the weather and how bright it is outside, and do other things, read the traffic and respond accordingly, and so on. All of which is a good idea, but I have to say I no longer think it's paranoia on my part to believe that a so-called smart streetlight, which records the information around it, can also become an invasion of personal privacy. In the United Kingdom, cameras are everywhere in cities like London, and there is a genuine civil liberties concern to be addressed. So I guess I'll give a big thumbs up to the increased balance between ebooks and the printed word, and at best I'll issue interest but a red flag in the whole smart streetlight project. We're going to have to wait and see how that one turns out. Please stick with us for the rest of the hour. I am Richard RJ Eskow, and this is The Zero Hour.